We're in the middle of the second section, on the lower section on page Kuf Chav Hey. And we will start on the line that begins with the word hu'ayvarim. And we're pointing out a significant difference between how the ratzon relates to all things outside itself and how other koiches that koiches pnimiyim that come in the form of oyer b'keli, how the oyer is mislabish in the keli with that relationship which doesn't exist in the level of in ratzon itself. Because ratzon is of a higher caliber. It cannot be grasped by anything outside of itself. And right now we're discussing the consequential differences that result from this. How the ratzon affects all the koiches and the limbs that attaches itself to. So I said we'll start in light and begins with word hu'ayvarim. And what was said until now, that the ratzon is not affected as a result of its connection to the Ivarim and the koiches, whereas koiches pnimiyim are affected. V'im hayois, although sheharotz in toifus b'hakoiches poil b'hem, even though it's true that the ratzon does grasp, in other words, it relates to the koiches, it identifies the koiches, u'poil b'hem, and it has an effect in it. This is what we have been forced to recognize, because originally we said the ratzon is not mischabe with anything, doesn't connect to anything. But instead, how can he possibly say that it has an effect? It cannot affect without being connected. So therefore, the ratzon is definitely connects, but nevertheless, it's not the type of his chabrus, it's also unification between the koich and the aver, as it is in koiches pnimiyim. And the difference is that the koiches pnimiyim are described as a relationship between oyer and keli, whereas in ratzon there is not that level of relationship between the ratzon and all the limbs that it affects. And the simple way of describing it, which only points to further need to an insight, but the simple way of describing it is that in koiches pnimiyim it's a reciprocal, it's a double connection. The oyer connects to the keli, and the keli connects to the oyer. The oyer grasps the keli, the oyer adjusts itself to the keli. The keli also recognizes the oyer, and as a result of that, the keli develops, grows, and is affected by the oyer. Whereas when he talks about koiches makifim like ratzon, the keli, the koyach or the aver, the limb in which the oyer, the aver in which the ratzon has an effect, does not recognize the ratzon, does not any which way grasp and have an understanding what the ratzon is. As we thought, the ratzon is effective there. It's effective there because but the aver does not recognize and understand what it is. So the ratzon is grasping the aver, but the aver is not grasping the ratzon. This is what we're saying in simple terms. It's a one-way street. The ratzon does connect to the aver, and that's why it's able to have an effect there. But the aver does not affect the ratzon. in any which way. Now we say, well, let's say inside. Even though that the ratzon grasped the koiches, and it has its effect in them. It lifts the koiches. It makes the koiches do things that they could not do on their own. The komo came yet still ha-koiches einam toifshim b'haratzon. The koiches are not grasping in the ratzon, meaning they do not have an idea what kind of phenomenon this ratzon is. Lifer by to affect in the ratzon as a shinui, some kind of change. And why is it that the koiches are not grasping the ratzon? It's there, and it has an effect upon them. So the way to describe this is this mipnei, because sheinei bo bislapshus mamosh. Because the ratzon does not come in the koiches and in the AYIN bislapshus mamosh, in the true sense of his slapshus. Yesterday we translated the word slapshus in the simplest way, which is the correct way to translate it. But in terms of bringing it back to what is the significance of slapshus?
Connection.
Huh?
Connection.
Dressing up.
Dressing up.
Hebrew is connection. Slapshus is a lavush, to put a garment on.
So the point we're focusing in on is what now?
Slapshus.
Of Orbakeli?
That's right. The oil and keli, the oil is mislabish in the keli. The ratzon connects to the aver, but it's not his slapshus. And what is it what his slapshus denote over here? So let's go back to his slapshus as we know it. When you put on a garment, this is simplest, superficial level. When you put on a garment, garments have multiple functions. One is, if it's cold, you need a garment to cover yourself, to keep yourself warm, to so to speak, keep the warmth of your body warmth from running out, from losing it. There, the garment is a completely peripheral aspect to the aver. It does not connect to the aver. The aver, it doesn't make any difference what the garment is made of and what its form is, as long as it keeps the heat of the aver protected inside. But there's another function of garment, completely different. The garment is actually describing the aver, describing the human being. A human being has to wear garments, not just for protection against the elements. He has to wear garments because of his status. The garment describes what type of creature this is. No other animal has this kind of a relationship to a garment. The garment is made, number one, to fit perfectly the human being. And if it doesn't fit perfectly, we say, hey, it's no good. Get something that fits. And it fits in every limb. You have the arm. Huh?
No, nothing.
You have the arms and the feet and the body and the head and so forth. Every limb has its particular form that the garment embraces it. And this form actually glorifies the person. The Gemara says, Mona mechabdusa. The garments bring glory and cover to the person. It's not just a functional, a practical thing. A garment is something which actually reflects and brings out in the person an element of glory. And the person is mislavish in it. Mislavish means that he's actually affected by it. When he's wearing a garment, he's in a certain different mindset than when he's not wearing a garment. I don't have to elaborate on this because this is something which everybody experiences on a daily basis. This is called hislapshus. That he actually personally, deeply relates to it. A person without a garment cannot venture out. It's violating his dignity. The garment enables him to venture out. This is called hislapshus. This kind of hislapshus does not exist in the ratzon level. The ratzon is not mislabish in the AYIN. The AYIN do not bring out in the ratzon a certain dignity, a certain level of value, of sense of reality. The ratzon is real in of itself. To remind us, for those who we pointed out, the Rebbe uses the term gidei harotzon, the veins of the ratzon. And we said there is no veins that carry the ratzon. The ratzon creates its own veins, its own pathways to reach the furthest parts of the body and to enable it to act. This is what we're saying. It's not the hislapshus, and the koiches do not affect the ratzon. The ratzon is mislabish, is in the AYIN or not in the AYIN, it's not affected either way, because the ratzon does not come by hislapshus mamosh, ki im bebchinas havdolah. The ratzon affects the AYIN in bebchinas havdolah in a havdolah manner. Havdolah means standoffish, separate. Thus, for this very reason, the effect that the ratzon has on all the koiches does not discriminate between one koich and another. That it should be mislabish and relate to the koich and affect it in its way. No, b'shava. It affects all the koiches equally. Min koich ha-seichel, all the way up from the koyach ha-seichel sheberoish, that's in the head, ad koyach ha-hiluch sheberegel, till the very lowest of all the koyches, the hiluch, the walking capability in the foot. And then furthermore, hein bitnua chitzenis, that the effect of the ratzon is equal in all places where it has an effect, both in terms of actually affecting its action, and even a more superficial, Tnuach Hitzenis. Tnuach Hitzenis means an external movement, which has no particular significance. The ratzon affects Tnuach Hitzenis on all the limbs equally. Shepoil beregel, but affects in the foot kmei b'harosh, just as in the same way as in the Rosh. Let's understand Tnuach Hitzenis.
Yeah.
Tnuach Hitzenis means a Tnuah that does not really do anything. Not an action for some kind of accomplishment. When you ask somebody, why did you sit down over there and not here? Then, this is Tnuach Hitzenis. He's not answering with a kind of a response. He's making note of the question. This Tnuach Chitzenius could be in the head. It could be in the hand. Leave me alone. This Tnuach Chitzenius does not carry any kind of message and significance. It's just a response to this question, and the response is not a response. It's making note of it. This Tnuach Chitzenius is recognizable on the lowest level, on the lowest years, and on the higher, and then even the head. You make a Tnuach Chitzenius with the head. So he says, whether it is a Tnuach Chitzenius or it is a Tnuach Pnimis, a more significant Tnuach, in all of these, the ratzon relates to all the AYIN equally. And similarly, in the middle of that line, his galas hakoiches. His galas hakoiches, affecting his galas and the koiches, the revealing, bringing forth of all the koiches. The ratzon has an equal effect on all the koiches, how it relates to the koiches and how it brings them out. And as all this is written at length, in the Hemshech. This is what we said just now, and this is a logical conclusion of what we introduced ratzon. That ratzon is a higher koyach. It doesn't get involved in anything external, and therefore its effect is without grasping him and affecting the ratzon.
What is that abbreviation again, please, Rabbi?
Which abbreviation?
Base Daled Hey.
Based on B'dibur Hamaskil.
B'divrei Hamaskil. Who is the Divrei Hamaskil?
No. Dibur Hamaskil, a mimer that begins with the words Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, okay. And what is the Yud Vav Tov mean? Tov?
Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah.
Yom Tov Shel Rosh. Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah.
So now he comes in parentheses, like we already pointed out. We just now finished emphatically explaining how the ratzon is not affected by the koyach or the aver in which it functions. On the choira, however, it would appear yeshin beratzon. There is a difference in the ratzon with a sefes of Geroin, in the aspect of the sefes of increase, and Geroin in decrease. This is a blanket contradiction of what we've been saying, but l'choire would appear to be true. L'choire means it appears so. Yeshin beratzon with sefes of Geroin alidei hakoiches pnimim, which is the sefes of Geroin, the increase and decrease that is caused by koiches pnimim, by the koiches, the functioning koiches are function in Kelim. Why do we say that? The honoreim, for we see, we can actually observe. In other words, this is not in rationalization that our seichel brings us to identify that, but it's something we see it. And once you see it, you can't ignore it. Even though logically it would seem to you that this shouldn't be. But we see the fact, kasher yesh is galus keches apnimi, that when there is a state of his galus keches pnimim, that the keches pnimim are by his galus, such as the seichel is in great function, or even the koichat nuah, walking, talking and so forth. Oz then misgale gamkin horotzim b'tesefes oir. The ratzon is then also revealed b'toshvus oir with an increase of oir. It becomes more pronounced and more present. And toshvus oir means with greater enthusiasm. Or kamoy, as for example, as it is. That when a person comprehends some great concept, with his seichel ability, in his seichel he comprehended a certain great concept. Then the person becomes merutze b'yoser, very satisfied. Satisfied. Again, I have to explain it because we have all kinds of interpretation of this satisfaction. Just as we said before, satisfaction and pleasure and so forth. This is all a different world. Means not that he is satisfied. He can be satisfied because look what I accomplished. Look what I accomplished. It's called chitzenis de chitzenis. It's not chitzenis. It's chitzenis de chitzenis. This is totally insignificant to what he accomplished. Marutza b'yoser means it is not a personal accomplishment element. He's just in a better mood, in a better state of mind, in a better personal relationship to everything. That's a marutza b'yoser.
You're happy.
No. Just listen.
I understand.
This explains the following phenomenon. That when a person, with God's help, celebrates a special event of a child, even a bar mitzvah, which is a natural process. Certainly, if it's greater than that, if the child accomplishes, graduates, and certainly greater than that when he gets married, that experience brings a person to a state of elation. This merutza, there's a certain state of satisfaction. Satisfaction there is not personal satisfaction. It's satisfaction of a certain state of reality. As we explain all the time, a child, this is the ultimate reality of a human being. The infinity of this human being. When this infinity is taking root and becomes real and becomes productive in the general world, that brings a certain spirit of quote-unquote satisfaction, but it's not satisfaction on the practical thing, a personal satisfaction. Satisfaction is a much deeper sense of value of life. He really lives. He has a ratzon. His ratzon of life has now been satisfied, justified. It's real. It's merutza b'yoser. So here we see that the ratzon itself is affected by practical experience. The Rebbe uses a simple emotion. The person is learning, and he's learning something very deep, and ultimately he understands in his seichel some great concept. So the seichel clearly is very much affected. That's a seichel. But there is a deeper and a greater effect. He, the person himself, is merutza b'yosher. He has experienced now in his ratzon a certain sense of reality. He's merutza b'yosher. He's very greatly satisfied. Let me explain before we go on. What is the connection between this ratzon and the seichel that he understood? He's merutza b'yosher. Why? Nothing to do with the seichel. And again, we point out, it's not a question of self-aggrandizement. Oh, look what I accomplished. It's the actual experience of the seichel itself that gives him this sense of merutza, of ratzon, of experience of ratzon. And here I'd like to briefly introduce it. I may say all the time, as we have already learned here, that the seichel itself is ratzon originates the function, the seichel to come forth. The seichel comes from a source which is not seichel at all, which is nefesh. And then it becomes, potentially it has the koach ha-seichel, and then it forms into a seichel. This forming into a seichel is due to the ratzon. The ratzon brings the seichel into an arena of functional and practical arena. And within this practical arena, the ratzon gives the seichel a sense of the reality where he's coming from. Now, this which you understood is not just a logical formulation of your mind. You have comprehended something of the phenomenon of a fundamental truth. And the reason you comprehend it is because you identify this fundamental truth. This is the seichel as it is rooted in the ratzon. And when this seichel takes hold, the ratzon itself comes forth. And there's a certain sense of merutza. He's experiencing the ratzon itself as a result of the seichel. He's experiencing the reality of ratzon itself. Also merutza b'yosher. And this is what Rebbe is pointing out. His merutza b'yosher, that means that the seichel and the function of seichel has been affected. Has affected the ratzon. Why do we say that the ratzon is not affected by seichel? It is affected. If a person reached a point where he'll be able to understand something of great significance, both significance and great challenge, and also an insight, then he's merutza b'yosher. His ratzon comes forth in a very pronounced and a very active manner. Therefore, we see that ratzon is affected by the functioning koiches. Even though ratzon is superior, and he's not mislapshus in the koiches, nonetheless, there is an effect by the koiches, by the function of the koiches in the ratzon.
The ratzon is affected or expressed.
No, it's affected. It's not expressing. He's not expressing anything. He's just experiencing it.
Okay, that's what I meant. Experience. A validation of the ratzon.
Harei Murutza b'Yeser. Murutza b'Yeser, we tried very hard to translate the word Murutza. Murutza means satisfied. But again, because the word satisfaction implies many different things, satisfied means on a personal and deep and a realistic level, not satisfied. He's satisfied that life is real. This is Merutza b'Yeser. This is a bringing forth of ratzon. V'chein, and similarly, this is not when the seichel has come forth and brings out the ratzon. V'chein, and similarly, ish hatoiv, a person who is by nature is a good person. He's inclined to doing favors. When he actually does a favor, a goodness and a kindness, when he does a favor to somebody, you could see a personal satisfaction. This personal satisfaction, again, we are qualifying it, does not mean a personal satisfaction. Look what I accomplished. He actually experiencing his own life in a deeper, more meaningful manner. Is Murutza.